time for government, protecting our liberty.
Good evening, and welcome to Your Right to Know by the Fitchburg Republican City Committee. My name is Mary Lotze, and I will be your host for this evening's show. Tonight we have a different panel, a different look, a panel of women. And the reason we're having a panel on women is because we're going to talk about topics very important to women. Back in the 2012 election, we believe that Barack Obama won because the Democrats put out a meme, and the meme was that the Republicans have a war on women. Tonight, to talk to me and with me and to our viewers about the war on women is our esteemed panel. And I'll begin with Karen Anderson. Karen is from Orange, and Karen is running for state representative for the 2nd Franklin District. Welcome, Karen, and thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you. I appreciate the offer. Thank you.
The next is Kathy Goguen, a recurring guest on our show and member of the Fitchburg Republican City Committee and a small business owner. Welcome, Kathy.
Thank you, Mary.
Finally, on our panel tonight, we have a new member, a member of the Fitchburg Republican City Committee, Christine Hallet. Christine is also a homeschooled mother of 3 children. So good evening, my friends, and welcome to Your Right to Know. I'm going to start the discussion on the war on women tonight with a hypothesis. And we're going to start out by talking about this hypothesis. The hypothesis goes like this, that the term Republican war on women was put forth as a political strategy by the Democratic presidential reelection campaign before the 2012 election to energize women voters. If we remember, the women were instrumental in bringing the campaign to success for Barack Obama in the 2008 election. We're going to say the Democrats energized the women's voters using the Republican war on women strategy, which was a false narrative, because they felt that this was a way they could sell the argument that we were taking away the women's right to choose, and in other words, they were going to take away a woman's right to abortion, and also women would now have to pay for their own birth control. This is really, from what I could study and see, the crux of the Democrats' claim that the Republicans have a war on women. Why did they do this? Well, they did it for many reasons. Polls coming into the 2012 election showed that the women who supported Barack Obama in full force in 2008 were pulling back, and they were not as vocally supportive of him. What we found going into the 2012 election, we hadn't solved any of those problems that Hope and Change said we were going to support or change. These were: unemployment was still very high, soaring national debt, questions and concerns over Obamacare, little foreign policy success, and continuous apologies. Plans like the economic stimulus, which cost tremendous money, brought little success in improving the economy. Numerous congressional losses in the 2010 election, and young people were very dissatisfied with the president because of high tuition cost, and they were leaving college with very few job prospects. So I'm going to turn to my panel. Karen, I will start with you.
All right.
Do you agree with this hypothesis, or do you disagree?
I agree that they do have a strategy of divide and conquer. It's united we stand. It's we the people. And if they can divide you and segregate you into groups, then there's more plan for attack to separate. And that's part of socialism, that they would divide us into groups so that they can put forth their agenda. One of the things I found that was interesting is when, excuse me for a moment, they have the slogan, conflict. If they can create a conflict, then they can present themselves as the savior of the solution. And what I find is we make greater progress when we work together. Cooperation builds up. but you have conflict that will tear down. And they're very good at doing that. And if they can tear us down as a people, they can put in the programs and things that and the agendas that they want to get through. This is a big distraction technique. The woman felt she was not going to have her rights. She felt she was going to have things taken away.
Right.
And when you tell people things are going to be taken away from you, people get excited and get up in arms. Even the gun rights issue. And Gobi had a meeting about the gun rights just a couple nights ago. And there were multiple people there, mostly men, but there were women too, who were afraid that their gun rights were going to be taken away. So anytime that you say you're going to take something away, people rise up in arms. And this is one of the things, they did this as a conflict so that they could distract from what the real issues are that are going on.
Kathy, what do you feel?
I agree with Karen, and when they get people in conflict, people working against each other and starting to distrust each other.
Right.
They knew exactly what they were doing. I never understood it because I find it quite condescending
Yes.
to think that all women care about is whether or not they can have an abortion and who's going to pay for their birth control. I mean, I think we have a lot of greater issues to worry about. like
Absolutely.
polygamy.
Absolutely.
And for them just to break it down into those two simple little issues, I just found just baffling. But I know so many women who fell for it.
They did. Christine, what's your sense about it?
I don't understand really why the women who did fall for it fell for it. I'm a little younger, and I'm sitting there going, you want the birth control, you pay for it. It's not a medical necessity. You want it, you pay for it. You don't make somebody else pay for it.
Of course, Mary and I are old enough to remember when you didn't get it.
Right, right. No, right.
Oh, I watched a movie and it was illegal at the time of the
Well,
movie.
yes.
Or you had to be married.
Right.
So
I mean,
That strikes me as funny because isn't marriage for the purpose of creating children?
Yes. But I mean, we remember the times, and now they're almost trying to go back. It was interesting, Karen, what you said about the creation of conflict, because wasn't that Saul Alinsky, wasn't that one of his sort of focal points of how to win over people, the masses, was to go for conflict? I don't want to get off on a Saul Alinsky subject, but that actually your
focus on
idea.
one group and break them
And
down.
break
Right,
them down.
right.
So in my recollection, as I look at it, the war on women, we kind of just touched on it. I looked at this concept of, birth control, abortion is really what I classify as sort of small potatoes populism, is that he went after this group of women and honed in on this subject to try to make people feel like a victim. They were going to be victimized.
The victimized.
But yet the women, from any polls that I looked at, women were really more concerned going into the 2012 election with this list that I gave of education, jobs, expanding opportunity in the workforce, mobility in the workforce and within the workforce to go up. They were worried about their children, their children's rights, their children's ability to come out as, to go to school and to come out as productive citizens, whether that school ended at high school or whether that school ended at the college or postgraduate level. That wasn't important, but it was that they would have the opportunities when they finished their schooling to come out. And yet that never resonated. It never caught on, which is when I really look at a war on women. Those are the real issues that women seem to be interested in.
They honed in on emotion. So
Good
that
point.
logic just went out the window, and the important things never even got touched on because they had everyone riled up in emotion. It was
a magnifying glass put on saying that your rights were going to be taken away. And it didn't matter what right, but the fact that your rights were going to be taken away. As a woman, well, all women have to rally against, for women, we have to protect ourselves. So it was a ploy. And it worked because it was distracting from what the real issues were at the time. Like you said, that those jobs are not there, that the college tuitions are exorbitant. And even my son was able to get college tuition paid for, which is wonderful for some of these colleges. It's only $2,000. The college year costs $36,000.
Sure.
So it sounds wonderful. It's less than $2,000 actually, the tuition bill was. But it's really, it's a disguise for how much things really are costing. And then the students have loans. And they're not talking about that either. You're talking 4 years of college, $36,000 a year. Then you've got a student loan on top of that. And are they teaching the children compound interest versus fixed interest? Are they have a spiral hole and they come out of college. One college told my girlfriend, you have a 2-year wait. Our graduates have a 2-year wait before they can get a job right now. And she was looking to further her business, her small business, by getting further education. And she says, right now, if I go and I take this time and I still have to wait 2 more years, she says, it's going to cost me instead of saving and helping me promote it. So she decided not to further her education with her business because of that 2-year delay. And as I mentioned, the spiraling costs with the tuition and the savings that you're supposed to have with the student loan, paying back the student loan. I have another girlfriend, her daughter graduated from Gordon. And Gordon is a very prestigious college in environmental studies. Right now, she still does not have that job, and that was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And these are people with educated degrees, I mean, in a specialized field that's very special right now, and they're still having difficult times. So this was a big distraction to take away from the fact that we really need the jobs. That's the part we really need.
Yes, Christine.
I've got friends who graduated college with me who can't get jobs because they're overqualified. The people, they're going for any job they can. They want to work. They want to have that job to pay their bills. They can't get them because people won't give them to them because those people go, we can't pay you what you're worth.
Well, doesn't this, I mean, now this kind of rings true to what we heard just the other day regarding the health care debate. And one of the things that our Vice President Joe Biden got up and said on this show called The View, which is a very popular show among women,
this morning,
is that, now how did he phrase it? He said women, especially single women with children, do not have to be locked into a part-time job. They can leave that job knowing that they can still get their health care benefits on the outside, and they can stay home with their children, maybe homeschool, maybe they can, you know, take up poetry writing or art, and they can live off the taxpayer. So where are we coming when we really talk about independence? We're trying to promote and foster independent women. Isn't that really what the war on women is about?
They don't want to foster independent
No.
women. The Democrats want dependency because that gives them power.
Exactly.
If you are giving somebody something and they depend on you, you have all that power over them.
That I have a friend who was going through the welfare system and she was doing schooling and she had a job and she got a pay raise and she went down to give them the new information and they said, well, you don't qualify for Section 8 anymore. What do you mean? Well, you're $1 over the cutoff.
Yes. So
So-
where's the incentive?
They told her to quit her job so they could continue paying her housing. She goes, no, you're not taking taking away my dignity.
That she's starting
I'll go
to
get
work.
a second job.
Oh,
Thank you,
my.
and walked out of the office. But most people would quit the job.
Sure, because that's what our government at this point in time is supporting. You know, getting back to the war on women and to the convention, the thing that really surprised me was the public face. I mean, granted, they had a lot of women: Nancy Pelosi, Hillary Clinton, Michelle Obama, First Lady. But the face that really resonated with the war on women was the woman who was a graduate of Georgetown Law School, Sandra Fluck, I believe is how she says her last name. And she was the face that got up at the convention, a Georgetown University graduate who can go out and sell her degree, herself in a law profession for a well into the six-figure salary per year, walking out the door with those credentials. And yet, I couldn't identify with her. Granted, I'm older, but what woman who believed this could identify with this face of the war on women?
But she was very popular.
She was, and now I hear she's going to run for senator in California, U.S. representative in California.
It disturbed me to hear her say, and you could look this back up, that the women are suffering from a lack of coverage for their physical and their mental and their emotional needs, that other people should pay for those things. And it costs, during law school, $3,000 in contraceptive needs. I'm wondering why you need those. If you're in law school, that's a pretty hefty load right there. So for me to pay for your privilege, not a right, privilege to go around and be promiscuous, and you're asking us to support that, I have an issue with that one. You know, I think at law school you should be studying, you should be getting your work done, and to say $3,000, that's quite a lot of contraceptives right there.
Well, you know, even if we want to say that this was to a woman who was in a well-established family relationship and she just needed a temporary birth control, you know, it's even then, why it costs $3,000. Why should the taxpayer be responsible for paying this money?
Because there is abstinence. If you are being that,
there's many other things.
There are many other things.
If I
And
remember
so
right,
it's-
safe sex was all about the use of condoms.
Just
And
say
when
no.
when did safe sex end?
Right.
Do they pay for condoms for people? Because I don't think they cover condoms.
They hand
So
them
that-
out in high school.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that. You can go to your school nurse.
Times have changed.
Yes.
I am so glad I'm homeschooling with
While
you.
you're homeschooling.
You know, when I think of the war on women, I think of, again, small potatoes populism is what we're really talking about. But I think of women whose human rights and rights to life are
I
in jeopardy.
think of women in Afghanistan who are married off at the age of 10 and who are sold into slavery, and women are beheaded for looking at a man that she isn't directly related to, and girls who are shot on a school bus because they dare to go to school.
And we have a case that, again, is a face everybody knows
That is
about.
the war on women. This is infantile. This other stuff is just infantile.
It's selfish. It's American selfishness.
Yeah.
Oh, I
You
think
know,
that's an
it makes
interesting
sense.
way to look at
Yes.
it, isn't it?
It is, because if you go over there, if you ever saw the movie with Sally Field, and it says "Not Without My Daughter,"
Yes, I
and
did
it
see
talks
that.
about her being married to a Muslim, moving over there, and what the culture is different, and he's expected to discipline her in certain ways with beatings and things, and this she wasn't going to leave the country without her daughter. And we think over here, because we can't get things paid for us, because it's our right, we own it, but they misuse the word right.
Rights,
And
yes.
that is a big issue right there. When we say some of these words, New England, we use "it's wicked windy out there." It's a wicked, you know, it's wicked cold. And some things are cultural words that we use. But one thing that they've taken is the word right, and they made everything a right. It's my right to drive. It's my right to, and it's not. Those things are privileges. When you live in the United States, this is a privilege. It's a privilege that you have those freedoms. Other countries don't have those freedoms. Women, we just had this big uproar about that girl that got a beating she was the one that was being raped over there, and because she was the one that was raped, they just had her and they were going to behead her, and it was a huge court case. You remember hearing about
Yes.
that?
I do.
And it was partly because in that culture, you don't sleep around. You don't have to have all those contraceptives. They don't use
Right.
them like that. So in fact, actually, many religions, it's against the religion.
And if in fact a man does want to have revenge on a certain woman or on that woman's family, all he does is have to take advantage of this woman, in some cases some of the most minute ways of just being seen with her, and
Yes.
he has jeopardized her freedom. So when I look at it, those are really the war on women, not
That's right.
birth control and choice.
You're right.
I was actually again looking at some statistics, and a CNN poll, January 31st to February 2nd CNN poll, showed these results. 1,010 women were polled. Does the Republican Party understand problems and concerns of women? Women under the age of 50 said no, the Republican Party does not understand women. Over the age of 50, it went up to 64% of the women said the Republican Party does not understand the concerns of women. When the poll was drilled down a little deeper and they went into a narrative of these, they said, per the narrative that went with this study, it seems that the problem that women have with Republicans may be less related to policies, but more related to attitudes and tone. And I think recently we have some of those attitudes and tone that was used, because we do have some men in our party who have used words like libido, abortion, sex life, birth control. We had Todd Akin, who ran against Claire McCaskill in 2010, who started talking about rape and shutting down a woman's biological ability to conceive. Claire McCaskill walked right into that reelection. Unfortunate, she did, she shouldn't have. So what do you think about men especially talking about these very personal issues of women, such as a woman's libido and sex life? Does it have any role in campaign rhetoric
no, it
at all?
doesn't, because they know they're setting themselves up.
Yeah.
They're just walking into it and giving the Democrats fodder for, for campaign ads.
That's not what they're running for. If they were running to do Viagra commercials, that's different. But if you're running for a political position, you need to speak about what you're actually running for. You need to speak about those jobs that we don't have. Speak about the taxes that keep going up. Speak about those issues that affect everyone. Everyone's affected by death and taxes, they say, so you're safe if you stick with it.
Well,
but there's other topics.
It's interesting because right now I call it a war on women, and it's about Obamacare. And one of the things I'm seeing, well, two things. Under some of the new studies that they're doing, they're saying women only need mammography every 2 years. And that we'll watch. That will translate into Obamacare coverage for women. The other thing they're doing is the politicians in the Democratic Party are going after women who are becoming very vocal about losing certain aspects of health insurance, such as there's a woman now who was being treated for lymphoma. In the midst, I can't imagine anybody so vulnerable. You're in the midst of being treated for cancer, a life-threatening disease. And you get a letter in the mail that says, as of this date, you no longer have health insurance. So now you're thrown off the health insurance plan you were being treated under.
You've lost your doctors.
You've lost your doctors. Now you have to start from square one in the midst of treatment. Women are talking about this, and the Democratic politicians are publicly going after them and demeaning them. And I look at that as being an example of a true war on women.
Yes.
Have any of you heard about some of this? Have you heard about any of these things happening, and how the Democratic congressmen are really going?
Didn't Harry Reid call them liars or something like that?
Yeah, they're taking them out publicly in newspaper ads and on talk shows if they have that opportunity.
If they have a bad experience with the new healthcare system, they're liars.
Right. And they're picking apart every morsel of what you say, and they're pointing that out publicly and saying, Christine said this, and that's not exactly true. I mean, I look at these kinds of things as being a true war on women.
The other thing is that some of the Democrats are also backing off, saying, "Oh, I didn't sign that. That must have been one of hidden things, and they didn't explain it to me."
Right.
No, it wasn't hidden. Nobody read the bill.
They didn't read the bill. Is really what it was.
And even in our own state house, they are trying to put a bill is being brought up right now that they need to give them more than 24-hour notice so they can talk to their people that they're representing about these issues, because sometimes it's thrown up on the floor that very day. And those are the things that they're trying to change. We're working to get that done.
Now, it's very interesting. I recently heard, although Hillary Clinton is still, it's very speculative whether she will run for public office and whether she will run in the 2016 election. But the speculation is at this point that unless something unforeseen is uncovered with Benghazi or with the whole State Department and everything that's going on, she will. But that she will come out and, again, pull up the meme of the war on women. And that will be part of her campaign strategy.
Isn't she leading the throng of people beating us women down?
One might think so, huh? I mean, when it came for her own personal war in her family, she went right along and stood by her man. Now, that's a personal decision. We all sitting around this table may make a different decision if we were being put in the same shoes. However, she didn't just accept and accept her husband's apology. She physically went after the women who were involved with Bill Clinton in decimating and ruining their personal reputations. That's another example of a war on women, and that's actually very provable. I mean, that actually did happen. So, I mean, we have a woman, but do you think women, you know, women can be very clannish and women can be very supportive of one another. Do you think if Hillary Clinton runs in 2016 that women will come out in mass, and I look not only at the Democratic base, but I look also at the independents, and vote for her simply because she's a woman?
Of course they will. I know people who will. I know
Yeah.
people who voted for her in the primary last time. Oh, because she's a woman. Well,
Well, we had the same situation where we have Obama in. And why do people vote? Well, I wanted to be a part of history. I wanted to vote the first black man in. I wanted to be that part of history. So people will vote her in because they want to be a part of history, voting a woman in. And that's why they're going to probably push her into that position so that they have that key.
Right. Didn't I tell you this was going to be the fastest 30 minutes on record? Believe it or not, it's over. Thank you very much,
Thank
Karen, Kathy, Christine, for joining us tonight on Your Right to Know. This has been a very interesting discussion. Certainly there's more to talk about, but right now I'd like to give you, Karen, since you're running for public office as a woman, I'd like to give you a minute and a half, 90 seconds to
Yes.
talk to the camera and
All right.
tell people about yourself.
Thank you. I am Karen Anderson. I live in the town of Orange. I am running for state representative. I cover 12 towns. When I'm out there with my children, I have 6, I go to the games, the football games, the soccer games, and you know what we do there? We talk. I take care of my grandmothers for the last 17 years, taking them to their doctor appointments. And when you sit in those doctor's offices, sometimes 2 and 3 hours, we discuss, and I discuss with those seniors that are there, the things and how things used to be, and you learn a lot. When I'm out there, people are telling me, Karen, you're not talking at us, you're talking with us. In order to represent the people, you need to talk with the people. In order for me to be a good representative, I need to talk to all the people. And I'm working on doing that daily, and my whole life has been working with the people. I'm asking not to represent politicals. I'm not here to represent politicians. I'm here to be a state representative of the people. And that's what sets me apart from the other candidates. And I'm asking for your vote. The primary is September 9th. And I thank you for your support already, those that have already given and donated your time, and lawn signs are coming up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karen, and thank you again, Christine and Kathy, for being with us tonight. And as we wrap up, I'll say what I always say. We thank you for watching Your Right to Know and sitting in with the FRCC. As we leave you, we want to know, and we want you to remember that your local city or town Republican committee is your only grassroots organization that supports and holds dear your constitutional rights and conservative values. We encourage you to join us. And why? Because we always stand for freedom. And remember, GOP, it no longer stands for grand old party in our eyes. It stands for growth, opportunity, and prosperity. Thank you very much, and good night.
America, we stand for freedom. So let us all unite to yearn and strive for our republic that reflects our values, that preserves our rights, and goes forth in power and might, that reflects our values and preserves our rights, and goes forth in power and